Hi everybody. I'm here with one of my good friends, an original badass, and Colby Raha, and we're here. It's mostly for surfing, like I was just telling him, but I feel like we want some motocross and skateboarding and possibly some snowboarders, just to keep it honest and colorful, so all the people get to hear stories from people who are badass around the world and at what they do. And Colby here is personally one of my favorite motocrossers. I don't know if you've watched him, but he does all the street stuff. First guy to do a handrail. He hits all the skate parks. He hits drainage ditches, airs off ramps and on ramps and freeways and trains and you name it. He's definitely like the urban assault master. And so,
Well, thank you.
also, not to mention, he has, world records in the quarter pipe and then going for the long distance world record. And on top of all that, he's just a super normal guy that will always pick up your call when you call, always answer. He'll come watch my kids at the skate park skate, and super personable. So we just wanted to get in touch with him and see what's going on in his brain. And first, and what I'd really like to say is thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man.
Thank you for always being yourself and true to the core.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Fletchers, the whole family. You guys, you and your brother Christian, and then Grayson's killing it, and then now to see your kids killing it is awesome. And talk about dirt bikes. I don't know if people know this dude and his brother were badass dirt bike riders back in the day, hitting like huge jumps in Glamis, out in the hills in Beaumont, and then racing Supercross too. And then they were pretty much the first dudes to start quarter pipe and dirt hit cliff hits, which I'm sure they got from the surfing stuff. So grew up watching them and Crusty Demons.
Yeah. So what he's saying is he's the world record holder. He went 55 feet out of the quarter pipe for the Guinness Book of World Records. But who was the first person to ever do the quarter pipe on a
This
motorcycle?
The foot plant
Yeah.
180 quarter pipes was actually him. So pretty sick, man. Crusty Demons, him and the boys. So that was cool to grow up watching them, and then friends of friends through the dirt bike community. That's kind of how I knew of them.
So let's just get into the gnarliness of motocross, and hopefully you'll send us a couple clips. But
Yeah.
what was it like? Like, I want to say one of your heavier slams, but that downhill hit you've hit when you were a kid that Tyson filmed.
Off the
Hopefully,
cliff, right?
yeah, hopefully we can get clip of
Yeah.
that.
So just being kind of young, I think I was 22 years old. Basically, like when you're that young, at least for me, I wanted to make a name for myself, kind of stand out, or do you have to do stuff that's gnarly to get people to know who you are? Because there's a bunch of people or kids or whatever around your age that are all really good riders, but to try to make a name or stand out was the goal. So I was jumping trains, just doing whatever I could to go bigger than the other guys. And then I got into Real Moto and I wanted to win, of course. So like the goal is to win. So what are you gonna do?
And what's Real Moto, real quick?
Real Moto in X Games, it's like real street for skating, real snowboard, real snow, I think it is, real BMX. It's just that's what that is, but for dirt bikes. So I just started. I already had things in mind to what to do, and that was one of the gnarliest ones. And I never measured it, and I went out and I started shoveling it, and it was so gnarly. I remember talking to Link Ogle, and he told me, "Hey, if you're gonna do it, don't do it last because if you get hurt, you're not gonna make it to X Games quarter pipe. You should just do it first and get it out of the way. So if you get hurt, you can heal and then finish your part and then get ready for X Games." So I did it first. Sure enough, I went down, broke my collarbone. Luckily, that was all I broke, and got it plated. Finished my part with like 3 weeks to film. We ended up getting third, but everyone in the comments said we should have won, so that was cool. And then I went to X Games and then won X Games that summer. So and then we got in Real Moto next year and won that year, and then won the year after, and then they discontinued it. So that's kind of the story behind that. It's just try to find gnarly stuff to like stand out. I thought I was gonna land it when I was building it, but then after I was in my gear and all the filmers were set up and it was time to go, I just remember sitting up there and looking down at it like this is way bigger than I like what I thought. Like it looked small when I was building it kind of. But anyways, it ended up being 110 foot.
110 foot. And so to put that in perspective, Robbie Madison jumped on New Year's Eve. What was the building?
Off of the was that
The
like
Caesars?
the Caesar's Palace arch? Like,
Yeah, so he jumped up, and then when he jumped down, that's a world record jump. And if anybody's ever seen it, Robbie Madison goes completely nuts and jumps off the building, which I thought was probably the craziest jump in motocross history, because stepping up is one thing, but jumping down and then landing and not going too far, overshooting it or under whatever, it just plays tricks on your mind. So it might be the same distance, but how far was Robbie's jump?
I think his was like 90.
90. So we're talking, if you watch Robbie Madison at Caesar's Palace on New Year's Eve, you watch that and you're like, holy smokes. But to put it in perspective, because what he's talking about is a dirt jump where you shovel it, you look at the landing, it's a kind of like a cliff to crevice to run out. And so
It's a one and done. We don't really get to practice, you know?
yeah, it's one and done, but it's 110 feet, and so that's 20 feet farther than what the world record is, the biggest jump ever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really give it people never really gave it justice, I feel like, because it was dirt and because it was just out in the hills, and his filmer Tyson was maybe 15 years old at the time, and so he was 22, so there wasn't all the preparation and all the logistics that go into like a big Red Bull jump at Caesar's Palace on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So
no scaffolding and no training and going a little higher and weeks of practicing. It was just a big send, you know?
yeah, and so in a motocrosser's and a surfer and a skater's mind, a big send is in sense is not really as ballsy as you can get, and that's why it really caught my eye too. And I'll say, in my personal opinion, it's one of the greatest feats on a motorcycle that has definitely been overlooked. I'm sure some people, paid attention, but
I would say that out of like everything I've ever been asked, when I see people or whatever, the first thing they always ask me is, "Hey, that step down, what's up with that thing? That was crazy." So I actually do get a lot of people, but it looks bigger in person, I have to say too.
oh, so do the waves. So the wave, it's funny because it looks one way on a picture, and then if you get on the beach, you get kind of a clear vision. It looks a lot bigger. But then if you're just swimming and the wave's going to break on your head and just your head's out of the water, all of a sudden the wave gets 10 feet bigger. So there's multiple ways to look at these things. And if actually in person to picture, there's just no comparison.
Yeah. I mean, the big wave stuff to me, like I seen a picture the other day about, like, it was like a huge wave, dude surfing, and the reef was like this
Exposing, yes, Western Australia.
unreal. I compare, like, when we're going big out in the desert. I was just talking to somebody today. I said, it's kind of like big wave surfing, except you can't drown. But the only thing with dirt biking is we're like 2 hours from the closest anything, like road even. Like, we get so far out in the middle of the desert that if you crash out there, you're either calling a helicopter or your friend's got to load you up, or you ride back with a broken arm or whatever. So that's probably the only gnarliest thing about dirt biking way out in the hills.
But another thing is people don't think about it. It's your spinal cord's directly above your seat. And so when you land, the first thing you do is go to your butt, which compresses your spine. So it's kind of like, it's kind of a funny thing.
Different injuries all the time. I feel like my back's always hurting. My back was hurting so bad for like 3 weeks. I just wouldn't stop bitching about it. Every 30 minutes, I'm touching my toes. I'm all, fuck my back. My friends are probably tired of hearing about it. And I jumped off this roof recently on my dirt bike, and I landed so hard I heard my back go crack, and then I don't have any back pain now. So I don't know if they like cracked it back right or something. So
yeah. How many injuries do you think you have?
I didn't have really any injuries growing up racing. It was pretty much just like a couple concussions here and there growing up. But then, and then once I kind of turned pro and I started trying to do the X Games stuff, I broke my tib and fib, so I got rod and plates in there. Then I broke my, that collarbone was the second one, so that's plated. Then I broke my back and my pelvis in half when I cased that jump in my movie Narnia. My back shifted up, so they had to reset it and plate the front of my pelvis. I look like I got a C-section. And then 2 big screws the size of pencils in my back of my pelvis. And then chopped the top of my finger off. And knocked myself out like 8 or 9 times, I'd say, since I turned pro. And the last time I was unconscious for like 8 minutes. So I'm trying not to hit my head anymore because that. But
and you wonder why you got back pain.
And I got my shoulder. I just got my shoulder completely redone. Everything was totally demolished. All the tendons, it'd pop out just reaching around. like give my girl a hug and pop out. Just
Didn't it pop out at X Games? Didn't you tape it to yourself or something when you broke the world record?
yeah, it popped out like 4 or 5 days before X Games, just in Ventura last year, so 2023. So if you look at me, I don't know if you could tell, but I pretty much had my girl duct tape my arm to my side, so I'm riding like a T-Rex. Like I couldn't lift my arm up because because it popped out right before X Games on the takeoff, not even landing, just the preload up the quarter pipe. It popped out, so I was in the air at my practice spot and landed with it out. So it was just janky. I mean, going into a quarter, last thing you want is your shoulder to pop out as you're taking off. When you're 56 feet is what I went over the top of the ramp. So that stuff, it's gnarly. It's comfortable.
And how big was the ramp?
The ramp's 18 foot tall, so 56 plus 18. I always forget. It's like 70 something feet.
So he was 70 feet above the concrete.
Yeah.
56 feet above the platform. I don't even know if they have platforms, but
Aaron like 40, 50 feet ish, or 40 to, I'd say 40 foot has become comfortable, like over the top of the coping. That's not too bad, but when you start getting into like where you need to go 50 feet to win, that's when it gets gnarly, because the compression of hitting the ramp so hard makes your body want to just explode on the impact of just taking off. And the landing's pretty rough too, but I'd say like just trying to keep your body from exploding from the takeoff is the hardest part. So I actually have to start like lifting weights and getting like fit, because if you don't, you're gonna fold. So it's come to that.
Yeah, you're getting old. It's painful. That's why I'm doing this right now. We're turning corners.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing. And the jump you cased it on, he has a landing ramp up there in Reno. And what's your goals with the long distance stuff? Because I know like Evil Knievel and our friend Trig and Robbie, all these people, they want a bunch of numbers. And so it's like if you do something of significance, and Trig, who is rest in paradise, but Trig, when he went 280 feet far, 277 feet far, and he went 80 feet high, he came home, and Evil Knievel was on his answer machine, became his promoter. But 280 feet's like, he still, I think, holds the highest for distance, not jumping over a canal straight above the land. But tell him what's in store, what you're planning to do, these crazy plans this man has, because I feel like it's really interesting.
So I feel like everyone always tells me, why do you want to do distance? It's, you could die doing it. Some people have died doing it, and I always tell them, it's like I feel like I excel in that type of riding. Like even on a BMX bike, I always like jumping down big stairs or launching far out of a park or whatever. But on a dirt bike, it's like I like to go huge. I'm not into technical stuff. Like I can do tricks, but it's not my style. So anyways, I actually feel like I really do love jumping far and big, and the only thing that scares me is a mechanical, like if your bike, like the chain snaps or something, going 100 miles an hour. Or I think I was going 85 miles an hour at the lip when I went 311 foot in the movie Narnia. But then the first time I hit it, which is how I broke my back and my pelvis and my shoulder, is I came up short. So it's really gnarly. You'd have to be on top of it with numbers. But what I'm kind of working on right now is we have that landing in Reno sitting out there. We got it permitted, so it's there. If I think we pitched it to X Games and a few other platforms that would take it on to have me go for the overall distance record. We have some stuff in play, but the stars have to align for that to come together, because I'm not going to do it for free. I won't even probably do it for 100,000 maybe, but at the same time, it's like you can if it's worth it, you get paid a couple 100,000. So that's just on the back burner to see if everything lines up, if they want to do it. Anyways, but for right now, I got property up in the.
But how far do you want to go?
Well, the record's 425, and I went 311, and I think that I feel comfortable enough to go over 425, because I did 311 in one day. And every single jump of mine felt so comfortable, and nothing got out of control. And it's not just me, it's the team. So like you have your the guy that with all the numbers, who Trigger Gum, Ryan Capes built the chart, and you're kind of following a chart. So it is skill, because you have to jump the bike, but it's really becomes a math equation, and that whole thing's really gnarly.
Because it's also the wind. you
There's
know,
a way
it's
you don't
distance
jump
of
in the
runway,
wind.
certain
Yeah.
gears, how many teeth are on your sprocket.
So we would go more like the surfer kind of route where it's like we jump when there's no wind, so there's a time slot. So like if they want me to jump at 6 p.m. on Sunday and everyone's there for it, well, we're telling them we could jump between Friday and Monday. It just depends when the weather's right. We're going. So
That's a
it's
crack
like
of
that.
dawn thing
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
want it to be light offshores.
But what I have coming up at my property, I'm doing RahaFest. I bought it's like 15 acres. It's 10, but like it's out in the middle of nowhere, so I kind of carved out 15. Anyways, I got all these jumps, and I have the world's biggest quarter pipe right now, and I'm gonna be going for the Guinness Book of World Records quarter pipe highest air, which I have right now, but I'm gonna do a live. So I'm gonna try to get Danny Way and everyone out there to come watch that. And it's RahaFest in November 2024, and I'd like to keep breaking records out there. So different distance stuff, and that's kind of what I have going up. It's RahaVille.mx on Instagram. So that's I do classes and stuff. But man, I can't get enough of the distance stuff. I think like the older I get, I'm doing all the X Games stuff and all the YouTube. But right now, I feel like no one's really in that lane. Like Mata was in it, Trigger, Capes. But now it's like in my generation, I love doing it, so I'm gonna try to take that on.
And Seth, we can't forget Seth.
Seth Enslow, of course.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, we could go on. Bird, the dude went 400 something feet. So there's a bunch of guys that kind of built all these numbers. Doug Danger.
Right on. So, getting back to that step down, that was another thing. I was there, but when Mickey Diamond did this step down in Ensenada on these dunes, and we dug the jump for him and got it all ready, and it was called the 1,000-mile jump, and Mickey showed up, and Mickey's just incredible, by the way. But we saw him do this step down. We dug it out, and it was over a road, and then he just over jumped it a little bit, and when he did it, he landed in kind of soft sand at Camar Dunes, right in Ensenada right there, and he wadded pretty good, and then he had to sit in the motorhome and he was just done. But that was pretty epic for those times. This was probably in 93 or probably 94 it was, but definitely pre FMX, pre jump shows. It was more like you were just going big, you were hitting kickers, and if somebody else hit it first, you're like, what gear? And then you're like, oh, it's third gear, 3/4 throttle, and then you'd run it a couple times, look at it, and then you would just go for it. And that's another thing too, was I remember when all of a sudden Dana and Jon Freeman showed up to this trade show in Vegas, and they had this new kid Seth along, and then they're like, oh, you got to see this footage, because on the way out they went to Dumont Dunes, and it was right after Seth just aired these dunes, and I remember seeing it just going, oh my gosh. And then that was an insane time in my life in motocross, because I was pretty gung-ho motocross for some years, and it was weird because it was just all in the very beginning stages, and it was interesting because it was like these snowboard guys, everybody started to ride motorcycles, like Palmer and Dana Danian and Noah Selaznick and Chris Roach, and so there was all these places where we'd all go ride, Hetzel and Brett Johnson and Don Zabo. And it was just really cool, and it was rad that Dana and John came up with, Creatures, or what was it, Crusty Demons of Dirt. I was thinking Creatures of Habit for a second. That was their snowboard film.
Yeah.
But Crusty Demons, and it was like all of a sudden motocross just started taking off, and it just became this thing where it was unstoppable. And then they started doing maybe a couple jump shows. I was at the first jump show in Las Vegas, but it really took a turn when Carey Hart did the backflip, and then I was also in the Crusty Demons when Pastrana showed up to Beaumont, when the Crusty guys flew Pastrana out, and I think he was about 16 or something.
Yeah, he's like 14, I think.
Yeah, maybe 14. I don't know. I was a young adult too. I was probably 21, but we rode with Pastrana, and then his ability, you could just see how good he was. He did this step down. I forget what the name of the jump is. It was like a diving board or something. And
I'm gonna grab this drink real quick. So I got no.
Yeah, but anyways, grab the Rockstar, folks. We're doing it. Rockstars in the house. No, but it was just a rad time and it was cool because it was like they couldn't control it because the
You guys
motors.
were the first ones to really go out and do that.
Yeah,
like
but
at the time, it was all racing.
yeah, the motorsports people really didn't want it, and they were just so over it. And then it was like McGrath and Emmett crossed over, and they started filming with John and Dana. And then it was like all of a sudden this movie came out that became like a cult classic, and
Yep.
right there, just everything changed, and now
The Baker, like Baker 3 of like Moto, like those movies are so rad because it was badass. No one was doing any of that yet. You guys were doing all that crazy free riding, which wasn't even a thing at the time. So like play riding, but then you guys ended up doing all that, but it was fun too. It was like that's the difference. It was fun. Like everybody was doing skits and fucking around and having a good time. So those movies are still hilarious, and the shit is still badass even today.
yeah, well, it's amazing. Like if you put your heart to something, like they changed the whole industry, and now it's like you have freestyle motocross, supercross, outdoor, desert or whatever.
Yep.
And so it actually became something where these kids who had more of a not hardcore, but kind of a little bit more attitude. Because I mean, I remember going to what is it called, Barona Oaks, and we would just hear this 80 just all right. You could hear the kid on the whole track, and they're like, "Oh, that's Twitch," and then and it's just funny how like he was just super good at racing and all the local tracks and all that. Well, I forget the name of the series, but it was like the Golden State Nationals, and all these races would go around. But then it's like now Twitch is huge, and they were all just kids. Everybody was, it was like a free for all. And then
That's Southern California for you, though. Like everything's there. I was telling someone, it's like all the sponsors are there, and all the hills, all the riding. Like you go out to like Arizona, it's flat. There's still a scene there. Those dudes, Chapter 11, they kill it. But like California has the hills.
we would go poach because there was no good supercross tracks because it was just like Paris, Glen Helen, Star West.
Yep.
But then we would go poach in Corona. Like we'd go to the Honda track or the Kawasaki track and sneak in and ride in like professional supercross tracks because that's where they train.
Yep.
When
Yeah,
they-
it's all there. So like there's a huge scene out there, and that's where I gotta be. I was living out here the last like 7 months, and we made a pretty killer edit, which will come out soon, of just everything I kind of found out here for moto. But got to get back to work out in California.
What was the drainage like? Because I know that was one of your recent
That
things.
thing went big. Huh?
And
It's like
Jamie O'Brien kind of hits this drain, and then
it was like the U down guys from back in the day, and then Poopies went down it, and then Jamie and Scummy Diener, and then they brought me out to check it out, and they were sliding down it, and I'm like, yeah, when this thing's dry, I'm definitely jumping down it. You have to. It looks so fun. So brought a ramp, and I had a poppy ramp at first, like a steep one, and I was hitting it pretty much as hard as I could. But I'm like, I got to bring back a more mellow one so I can just launch and go further. So we scooted it back for like 60 feet. I think it was like third gear, and I was getting used to it. And then the one time I hit it, I think I was like, I don't know, I've spaced it or something. I wasn't thinking, and I fucking gave it a little bit extra throttle, and I launched so fucking far down that thing. I landed toward like 10 feet from the bottom, and then that clip went crazy viral on Instagram. It's like 82 million views or something right now. But yeah,
82 million. Wow.
it's weird how that shit works, huh? It's like, I think if people start commenting and getting or liking it or whatever, Instagram promotes it because it's doing good or something, so it gets all this traction or whatever. But yeah,
So it'll be the opposite of this.
like it and fucking nah.
No, but that's insane too because all the surfers, all these people who will probably see this they've seen Jamie go down that, and then
Yeah.
when you showed up, you just launched the thing, and
Thing is fucking huge in person,
yeah.
and it's steep. I remember jumping or just riding down it, which was kind of whatever, just rolling down it. Then I got to the bottom and I was looking up at it, and it looked like a fucking roller coaster. And I'm like, dude, if I go up this thing and I start spinning out or like I bog out or something, like, I'm like, dude, you're gonna slide down this thing on your ass and like probably lose fucking all your skin down that thing. It's pretty gnarly.
So what's on the agenda?
X Games in like just over 2 months, like 10 weeks.
Okay.
Ventura. I won the last 3 in a row, so I'm going for the 4-peat. Kind of just got to get ready for that.
What are you
Start
gonna be?
dieting,
You're gonna be
fucking-
training?
Yeah, I have to, because it's a high air contest. So if I cut like 20 pounds, I can go an extra couple feet.
So this is something we've talked about too, because I was telling him that the electric bike is going to be the one, and I noticed that I've seen you on these new
He did
Star.
say that. He's always like knows what's up and shit.
Well, I was
Like, run
just
street tires on your distance. He'll call me like I'll be in Reno or whatever. Randomly, he'll just call me. Hey, I was thinking you should run street tires on your distance because the knobbies have like this. The air is gonna hit it like it's less aerodynamic, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, he's fucking totally right, dude. It's pretty rad.
yeah, because I think about it, but then it's like he's actually doing it, but yeah.
He's been there though, and he knows what's up, so it's fucking rad. And then he's like giving me ideas on spots and things to jump and stuff. But
Telling him he needs to hit the big square handrail like the people like up the Danny Way at the mega ramp, how it's all big and square, so you can walk on and do a bike slide or whatever.
Slide. Yeah,
but
the electric bike. So
yeah,
the thing's got 80 horsepower, which 450 has 55, 56. So you're talking 1/3 more horsepower, which is stupid. But you can set it however you want. So there's a phone with an app, and you just go to the app and you can start at 10 horsepower if you're gonna like put your chick on the bike. It's pretty slow. Then you can go 11, 12, 13, 14. You can set it at 25, 32, 33, whatever the fuck you want, all the way up to 80. So I'll be setting it at like 50, training at that, putting it 60, 70.
Are you gonna ride it in the quarter pipe?
I think so. I mean, as far as I know, the thing is fucking so much better than the gas bike on that.
Because another thing is you don't have to shift, and so you're not coming up to going first, second, or just starting in second, running out of gear.
Yep.
It's like
because we always hit it in second gear, full throttle on a 450, and you do kind of tap out. So it's like it signs off. And you're not going to shift to third because you can only come in so fast before you explode from the G-force. So the 80 horsepower with no gears, you just I posted a video of Metzger ripping down the street. I put him at 80. He just rode it for the first time. He's cracking up, dying laughing, because you don't have to go first, second, third, fourth, fifth like as fast as I could say. That's pretty much how quick you can go through gears. That thing's just fifth, and you're fucking out, dude.
Yeah.
As fast as you can go with the tire spinning the whole way. It's unbelievable.
It's like Tesla quick.
Yeah, it's like if you ever rode a street bike. I've never driven a Tesla, but a street bike has so much fucking horsepower. They're so fast, but you have to go first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And then on that bike, you don't. So it's like, it will beat a street bike.
Right.
If you can keep it from
It's like those slot cars when you...
Exactly. Just like an RC car. Yeah, like an RC car. It's stupid. It's fun as hell to ride.
All right, so that's on the agenda. We're going for the 4-peat at X Games.
Yep, and then that RahaFest thing I'm doing at my property should be pretty fun.
RahaFest is going to be popping off.
We're having 110 races, 110 best trick, BMX best trick, amateur freestyle. So all the amateurs that want to make a name for themselves come out and practice like weeks prior. I'll let them all come out and practice so everyone's safe. But then compete, whoever wins, there'll be some bonus for them. And then pro demo, so we'll have like everyone, all the big name dudes will come out and ride just to kind of show what we're doing. It's like a demo. And then at the end of the night, I want to break the quarter pipe higher record on the biggest ramp in the world. It's my goal.
And how tall is your ramp out there?
So X Games is an 18-foot tall ramp with like a 24-foot tall landing. And my takeoff is 30 foot. So 30-foot takeoff with a 35-foot tall landing. And I'm going... and try to go 70 feet out of it.
And you've seen the Danny Way stuff where he puts so you can't hang up, right?
Yeah, we put a little bit of a curve on it.
No, but like you put the landing so it's up at like 50 feet, and then you got the ramp at 30 feet so you can sky it. Yeah, so you can go up and then have a little bit of room for mistake.
Yep.
That's
kind of all I got until I get past those things. I mean, I'll be posting YouTube stuff, but until I get past X Games. And I got a show in Australia in June and another show in Oregon. They're pretty big, so definitely going to go do those. That's about it. What about you, man?
Nothing. I'm just thankful that you came by and we get to hear from you. And I'm stoked to see you in Hawaii. Because I like it when he's here. He always cruises around on his BMX bike. Anything you want to say about BMX? Because he's also a really avid, great BMXer. And What's the transit like? What is that? How does that translate? Because the one person that was a BMXer that I remember was McGrath, and he really changed in Supercross because he had such good bike control. He was the first person I remember really going low,
Yeah.
and so he was staying on the ground the whole time and sucking stuff up. Where I never really saw that before, but I guess you're in freestyle, and how does that translate?
I grew up racing BMX too because my dad said the same thing. He said Jeremy McGrath raced BMX, and I think that just teaches you like how to sprint. First of all, McGrath would always like whether he got the whole shot or not, he would sprint the first 3-4 laps and get a big lead, and then he would just chill. So I think he maybe got that. I'm more like I raced moto my whole life growing up, but then I'm doing I did freestyle BMX with all the tricks, street parts and shit. And I think that's kind of like where I'm like I could do all this on a dirt bike, and no one really had yet. And when I got into Real Moto, it's like what can I do that's different than and like I seen a few people dabbling into it, but I was like I'm going out and doing jumping off a bridge, wall riding my shop, like jumping down streets, like just
the ramp van.
Yeah, the ramp van. Bought that off of my friend James Ham. Anyway, so it's like Ryan Johnson technically. They built that back in the day for Monster Garage or something. But anyways, it's like trying to do stuff differently that no one had really done. Because when you look at Real Moto, you're like, okay, this dude's going to be riding all dirt. This guy's going to be riding all dirt. This guy's going to be up in Canada riding all dirt. And it's like, what can I do to stand out? And it was like, yeah, dude, what would I do on my BMX, but with suspension and a fucking motor?
That's another thing. Is that's another record you have, I believe, is the dirt to dirt backflip.
The dirt to dirt, yeah, fuck, see? Okay, and so in Narnia, I did a 190-foot dirt to dirt backflip. It was fourth gear, pretty much wide open. And the only other two people to do it was Todd Potter and Wes Agee. And we're just basically saying I tied it because I might have went a little further, I might have went a little less, I don't know. All I know is Wes Agee is like the king of flipping dirt, and Todd Potter's right there too. But yeah, that was pretty, like that's like right there on the top of my accomplishments.
Yeah.
Like backflipping to 200 foot just about, so 190. Some of that stuff before you do it, you're like, you pretty much have to be like, okay, I'm gonna go and pull back off this on my bars as hard as I can. I'm going 70 miles an hour, and I'm completely okay if I die or I'm in the ER in like an hour from right now. And you're like, fuck it, go. Like that shit's so brutal, convincing yourself. I mean, with you guys, you're like, this wave's gonna be fucking badass. I'm going for it. It's like quick. I don't know, because I don't do it, but when it's a dirt bike jump, you're like, you have all the time. You're like, I could do it tomorrow. I could do it. You just have to fucking convince yourself, and I don't know.
But what some people might not understand too is when you hit a ramp, and most of the ramps that you see like people do flips on would be about in the 70-foot range. Is that correct?
Like your standard jump, 75.
Yeah, 75. And what happens, like, it's the ramp doesn't move. It never changes. It's perfect traction, perfect texture. It's like basically a wave pool in a sense. And so when we're talking dirt to dirt, that's just a jump out in the mountains where there's a line off a lip and then there's a big dirt landing. And so in the meanwhile, like every time you hit it, the rut changes, it deteriorates, everything's constantly changing, rocks go into the little rut and everything. So saying, it would be one thing to do a 190-foot backflip from ramp to landing, but when you're saying dirt to dirt, that's like as hardcore as motocross jumping gets, is because
so I guess it'd be like surfing a big wave if it was fucking windy and choppy and shit a little bit, like compared to like a perfect one, right?
Well, yeah, in a sense, it's hard to compare those two because it's always windy and gnarly, like once you get out there and the ocean's that big.
Yeah.
But it's just the gnarliest thing you can really do because the ramp's definitely much more calculated and controlled. And so that's why I was comparing it to a wave pool. It's like, it's just perfect. It's not going to move. The ramp's not going to budge. Yeah. Where this, every time a tire chews through the dirt, the lip changes. The dirt. So each time you hit it, it's always different. And so when you're saying dirt to dirt, it's like kind of the gnarliest accomplishment or the highest level of risk.
The gnarliest type of riding or for what you're doing. I would say that going that fast to me was just like, because it's like when you're going that fast, I always say it's like that fucking arcade game with the light going in a circle and you try to time it right on the light because you're going so quick. If you time it, pull before or after this time when you need to pull, you're basically screwed, and you're going 70 miles an hour and you're flying through the air 190 feet. So whether you're landing like on your bike or off your bike, if you hit the ground, you're screwed. And then once again, it's like no ambulances around. It's just a gnarly fucking thing to commit to. Just, because you just have to be okay. The same with the step down. It's like you have to be okay with getting completely mangled and just hoping that you know what you're doing when you do it,
And that's another thing too. Even landing on your bike is a big bonus because you have all this suspension, and then if you put a foot down or anything that hits the ground, whatever hits the ground first is definitely broken. And
yeah,
like in surfing,
but I grew up doing it. I've been doing it I'm 29 now, and I've been doing it since I was 3. So I've been doing this for 26 years, and like all this shit, we basically like ease into it. We've been doing it for so long. But there's always the gnarliest stuff. Is why it hasn't been done is because it's fucking super dangerous. But yeah, it's like we ease into all of it and shit. Try to.
Yeah, well, but it doesn't take any of the gnarliest away from it, so that's why it's an honor to have you here. And then
Yeah, man, honor to be here.
Anything else?
I don't know, not really, man.
Okay.
What was I doing? I went and walked on the beach with my son. It's like 3 months old now. He's badass, so that's cool. You're like, hey, stop by. I'm like, cool, we'll do.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for coming. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah.
Stoked to see you guys this winter whenever the waves are going and watch the kids and Jetson and Lazer. Got a new edit I put them in.
Yeah, he always puts the kids. He always puts the kids in the edit. He always comes around, does cool stuff, and we all fan out because it's like the only guy who's down and come around and really make a presence. So, all right, well, we're out of here. Thank you for coming by. You're gonna be mixed in with all these other surfers that I look up to and my friends, and
anything you got going on is fucking rad.
And a lot of my friends, people. Braden Diaz, we just talked to him yesterday, but he said he was supposed to be a pro motocrosser, but he ended up being a surfer instead. Still putting together Harleys though. So some people are gonna love it. Some people might not know who Colby is. But if you get bored, YouTube Colby Raha. There will be a shitload of videos. It will be interesting. Your kids, adults.
Try to keep it kid friendly for the most part.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting, and it's a new style, and so that's about that. Thank you.
Yeah, sweet. Yep. Nice, man.
Oh.
Worked out?
Yeah, that was just too good. Wow. Easy.
Sweet.